The slam of the garage door echoed like a gunshot through the stillness of the neighborhood. I bolted upright from my couch, heart hammering, convinced for a split second that I had imagined it. But then came the unmistakable sound of metal scraping against concrete. And I knew someone had forced their way inside. My garage wasn't just storage. It was the one place I kept locked, guarded, and off-limits to everyone. And now someone had broken in. Peering out the window, the glow of the street lamp cast a tall, rigid figure against my driveway. Even before I could make out her face, I knew exactly who it was. Mrs. Crawley, our HOA president, the woman the entire neighborhood quietly called Karen behind closed doors. She was known for measuring lawns with rulers, issuing fines for the slightest paint chip, and demanding compliance with rules she seemed to invent on the spot. But breaking into my property? That was a new level of madness. I crept to the front door, pressing my ear to the wood. Inside the garage, boxes shuffled and plastic bins clattered as though she were tearing the place apart. My gut twisted. If she opened the wrong box, she'd find something she was never supposed to see. The night felt like it was holding its breath as I slowly twisted the knob and stepped onto the porch. From there, I saw her half hidden in the shadows, prying open one of my storage crates with her bare hands. Her determination was frightening. She wasn't snooping like a nosy neighbor. She was hunting for something. "What do you think you're doing?" My voice cut through the night. She froze. For a second, I thought she might try to bolt. But then she turned her head, her eyes flashing with a wild sort of triumph, as though she'd been waiting for me. "You've been hiding something," she said, her tone both accusing and gleeful. "And now everyone's going to know." Before I could respond, she shoved the lid off the crate. She peered inside, and then it happened. Her face drained of color. Her knees buckled, and with a faint gasp, she collapsed to the concrete floor as though the sight inside had stolen the strength from her body. I rushed forward, but my eyes caught the open crate first. And in that moment, my stomach dropped. What she had seen was never meant for her eyes, never meant for anyone's eyes. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint buzzing of the street lamp overhead. Mrs. Crawley lay sprawled across the garage floor, her chest rising and falling shallowly, her eyes fluttering as if she were trying to wake from a nightmare. I knelt beside her, torn between panic and dread, my gaze flickering back to the crate she had pried open. Inside, wrapped in old sheets and tucked between layers of cardboard, were objects that looked utterly out of place in a suburban garage: a heavy brass lockbox with faint scorched markings along its edges, a stack of weathered photographs bound with twine, and something else, something metallic that gleamed even in the dim light. Her trembling hand lifted weakly, pointing at the box. You shouldn't have this," she whispered, her voice a rasp. I swallowed hard. "You weren't supposed to be in here. You had no right." But the conviction in her eyes cut through me. She wasn't just shocked. She was terrified. As though the things in that crate were dangerous, not just suspicious. The wind picked up outside, rattling the half-open garage door, and I suddenly felt exposed, as though the whole neighborhood might see. I carefully lifted the crate and shoved it back against the wall, but her hands shot out, gripping my sleeve with surprising strength. "You have to tell them," she insisted, her voice growing louder now, trembling. "The board, the neighbors, everyone deserves to know." Her words sent a jolt of anger through me, but beneath it, fear gnawed deeper. If she told anyone, if she spread rumors about what she thought she saw, my life here would unravel. "You broke into my property," I said sharply, trying to mask the unease in my chest. "If anyone deserves explaining to do, it's you." She sat up slowly, clutching her sweater tight around her as though she were cold. "You think this is about me?" Her eyes darted to the lockbox, then back to me. "Whatever that is, it's bigger than either of us." I wanted to dismiss her words, to write them off as hysteria, but I couldn't shake the truth in her tone. The photos, the box, the glint of metal. I had kept them hidden for years, hoping the past would never catch up. Now, in the dim garage, with Mrs. Crawley staring at me like I was a stranger, I realized the secret was no longer mine alone. And the worst part? She wasn't backing down. Mrs. Crawley's eyes bored into me, unblinking, as though she were trying to read the truth straight from my soul. The buzzing light above us flickered, throwing jagged shadows across the garage walls. For a moment, it felt less like my home and more like an interrogation room. "What do you think you saw?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. Her lips pressed into a thin line before she answered. "I saw evidence. Evidence of something you've been hiding from all of us. That lockbox. Those photographs. You're keeping secrets you shouldn't." I tried to laugh it off, but the sound died in my throat. The photographs alone were enough to raise questions I wasn't prepared to answer. Black and white images of people no one here would recognize, places that didn't look like anywhere in our town or even in this country. And tucked in the stack were maps marked with cryptic symbols. Her hand hovered over them again, trembling as though afraid to touch. "Where did you get these?" she demanded. I stepped in front of the crate, blocking her view. "That's none of your business." Her jaw tightened. "It is if you're putting this community at risk." The words hung in the air, chilling me more than I cared to admit. Community at risk. She didn't even know the half of it. Before I could respond, a pair of headlights swept across the driveway, throwing us both into a brief, blinding glow. We froze. At 15, no one usually drove past. The lights slowed, paused, then crept forward before disappearing around the corner. Mrs. Crawley's face drained again. "They're watching you," she whispered, almost to herself. "They've been watching you all along." Her paranoia might have seemed absurd if not for the uneasy flutter in my stomach. She wasn't supposed to know anything. Yet her words cut close to fears I had buried years ago. "You need to leave," I said firmly. "Now." But she didn't move. Instead, she straightened her back, mustering the iron authority she often used at HOA meetings. "If you think I'm going to walk away, you're mistaken. Tomorrow, the board will hear about this." I clenched my fists. One careless word from her, and everything I had worked so hard to build here, my home, my quiet life, would come crashing down. And then, as if the night itself wanted to remind me how little control I had, the garage light above us went out. We were plunged into darkness. The sudden blackout silenced both of us. Only the faint wash of moonlight spilling through the cracked garage door gave shape to the outlines of boxes and shelves. I could hear Mrs. Crawley's shallow breathing and the faint creak of her sweater as she hugged herself tighter. "Did you cut the power?" she hissed. I shook my head, though she could barely see me. "No, it's the breaker. It trips sometimes." But even as I said it, unease rippled through me. The timing was too perfect, too pointed. She fumbled for her phone and lit the screen, casting a pale glow over her strained face. The beam trembled across the lockbox. For a second, her hand inched toward it again, as though drawn by some invisible pull. I snapped. "Don't touch that." My voice echoed against the garage walls, harsher than I intended. Her eyes widened. "Why? What are you so afraid of?" I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You wouldn't understand. No one here would." She held my gaze, her chin lifting defiantly. "Then make me understand." The silence stretched, filled only by the hum of crickets outside. A part of me wanted to shut the crate, drag her out, and pretend none of this had ever happened. But another part, the part that had carried this burden for years, was exhausted from hiding. I crouched, resting a hand on the edge of the crate. "These things don't belong to me." Not really. They were entrusted. And if the wrong people find them, it won't just be me in danger. It'll be anyone who's seen them, too. Her phone light wavered. Entrusted by who? The question twisted in my chest. I opened my mouth, but before I could answer, a low metallic clang rang out from the side of the house. Both of us jerked toward the sound. Mrs. Crawley's voice quivered. "Someone's out there." I moved quickly, lowering the garage door until only a sliver of moonlight remained. My pulse thundered as I grabbed a flashlight from the workbench and flicked it on. The beam swept over the cluttered space, over her pale face, then toward the back wall where the sound had come from. Nothing. But the night outside was no longer still. I could sense it, the watchful presence she had warned about. Mrs. Crawley clutched my arm. For the first time since I'd known her, the iron-willed president looked genuinely vulnerable. "You're going to tell me everything," she whispered. "Because if you don't, I'm afraid none of us will make it through this." The garage seemed smaller now, as if the walls had crept closer, trapping us inside. Mrs. Crawley's grip on my arm was tight, her eyes darting nervously toward the shadowy corners. I raised the flashlight again, sweeping it across the cluttered shelves, the workbench, the scattered tools. Every creak of wood, every distant rustle outside felt magnified. Then came the unmistakable sound of a latch being tested, someone tugging at the side door of the garage. Mrs. Crawley gasped. "They followed me," she whispered. Her words sent a chill through me. Was it possible? Had she been watched the moment she decided to break in? Or had they been watching me all along, waiting for the right time to move? The door rattled harder. I killed the flashlight, plunging us into darkness again. My pulse pounded in my ears as I motioned for silence. For several tense seconds, the rattling stopped. Then, faint footsteps circled to the front, crunching across gravel. Mrs. Crawley clutched her phone, her thumb trembling over the screen. Should I call the police? I hesitated. Calling the authorities meant questions I couldn't afford. But doing nothing meant we were sitting ducks. Before I could decide, the garage door shuddered violently, as though someone had slammed their weight against it. Metal groaned, reverberating through the floor. Mrs. Crawley muffled a scream with her hand. I leaned close, whispering fiercely, "Stay quiet." A pause followed. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the noise ceased. The night outside fell silent again, but not peacefully silent. Predatory silent. Whoever was out there hadn't left. They were waiting. Slowly, I reached for the crate and slid the lid back into place, covering the lockbox and the photos. If they got inside, these things couldn't be the first thing they saw. My hands trembled as I shoved the crate beneath a stack of paint cans. Mrs. Crawley's phone buzzed faintly in her hand, making her flinch. A text notification glowed across the screen. An unknown number. Just 2 words, "We see you." Her breath hitched audibly. She showed me the screen with shaking fingers. My stomach dropped. Whoever was outside wasn't just guessing. They knew we were here. They were watching closely enough to send that message in real time. I finally made the choice. "Call the police," I said. But before she could press the button, the garage door began to rise slowly, steadily, as though someone was overriding the lock from outside. The grinding motor filled the night. Moonlight spilled in, and in the widening gap beneath the door, a pair of boots stepped into view. The boots paused at the threshold, silhouetted in the sliver of moonlight. Mrs. Crawley clutched my arm so tightly her nails dug into my skin. My breath caught, every instinct screaming to run, but there was nowhere to go. The garage door creaked higher, revealing a figure in a dark coat. His face remained hidden in shadow, but the way he moved, steady, deliberate, made it clear this wasn't a random trespasser. He knew exactly what he was after. "Step away from the crate," the man commanded, his voice calm. Too calm. I shifted my stance, planting myself between him and the hidden box. "You're not taking it." He chuckled softly. "You don't even know what you're protecting, do you?" Mrs. Crawley spoke up, her voice trembling but firm. We've already called the police. They'll be here any second. It was a bluff, her fingers still hovered over her phone, frozen. But the intruder didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer, the door rattling fully open behind him. The police can't help you with this. They've known about these artifacts longer than you've been alive. Artifacts, the word cut deep. A reminder of the truth I had buried. These items weren't heirlooms or curiosities. They were pieces of something far larger. Evidence of events scrubbed from history. Secrets hidden in plain sight. And somehow, against all odds, they had ended up in my possession. You have no right, I said, my voice low, shaking more from rage than fear. He tilted his head. And you think you do? The flashlight beam trembled in my hand, but I aimed it directly at his face. The light revealed sharp features, a scar cutting across his jaw, and eyes that burned with something between obsession and hunger. He wasn't here to steal. He was here to reclaim. Then, faintly in the distance, the wail of sirens pierced the night. The man cursed under his breath. For the first time, his composure cracked. He darted one last look at me, then at Mrs. Crawley. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You've drawn attention neither of you are prepared for." With that, he slipped back into the darkness, vanishing just as the sirens grew louder. The garage door still hung open, letting the cool night air rush in. Mrs. Crawley sank to the floor, shaking. What have you gotten us into?" I stared at the hidden crate, my chest tight. The truth was, I didn't know how much longer I could keep the secret buried. The man was right about one thing. This wasn't over. And as the flashing red and blue lights neared, I realized the life I thought I'd built here was gone forever. If that twist left you holding your breath, just imagine what's coming next. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of the story. And if you enjoyed this wild ride, drop a like to let me know. Plus, share your own thoughts and theories in the comments below. Who do you think was really behind that break-in? Your guesses might be closer to the truth than you realize.